Conduct of business, item 10. The first item is A, receive an oral report on design of the arch feature and east side design at the Caltrain grade separation and provide City Council comments.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we have tonight Raphael Boland of the JPB, and I think our conversation will be facilitated if we allow Mr. Boland to make a short presentation, cover a couple of topics in follow-up to previous conversations that have been had here at previous city council meetings, and then allow you to engage discussion both about the arch design and the design of the landscape features on the along First Avenue.
Thank you. So I'll just very briefly give us a status update on some of the east side landscaping issues that have been ongoing, and then discuss the arch, where we are and next steps. So the two items on the east side that I'd like to discuss are the sidewalk along First Avenue and then the terrace planting, both items we discussed a couple of council meetings ago. So very briefly, the sidewalk alignment, as we discussed, varies depending whether you're to the north or to the south of Pine along First, and I'll show figures to that effect. However, subsequent to my last presentation to this body, I had a follow-on meeting with Councilwoman O'Connell, and concerns were raised, and the question was asked, why don't we just have the sidewalk consistently run along the outside? So that's what I'm here to ask. So here's where we are today. Depending which side of Pine Avenue you are, it's either a sidewalk followed by a planting strip followed by a wall, or there's a planting strip followed by a sidewalk followed by a wall. And the recommendation was to make the whole length have a sidewalk and then a larger planting strip, including the tree well. So here's where we are today, trees against the side for part of it, and here's the proposal is to move the sidewalk to the outside for its entirety. Second item I wanted to mention on the east side landscape, this is a follow-up item, but just to correct a slide that I've shown a couple of times here, which is the terracing, and this is the original version I presented, sort of gave the impression that it was relatively flat, whereas in reality it will be up to 8 feet from the grade step, and then a max slope of 2 to 1. So that's one of the slides I showed previously. I showed it a little steeper, but just to be clear, this is what we're actually proceeding with at this time. And then finally, I'd like to talk about my favorite arch. So really briefly, where we are, the mock-up has been completed. It's been viewed by the council as well as by city staff. And there were some concerns that came out of this process and also some of the quotes and bids that we've been receiving. So two things that I want to highlight. One is about a year ago, I performed an estimate. I gave a total cost of where the arch was going to be at about $1.2 million. Since then, receiving some more information from the contractor, it looks like that number is closer to $1.4 million. Two things. One, we've identified some items that we could pare back some of the scope items to get it back to 1.2. So that's something I'd like to talk about. And then the second thing is that, this leads to my second concern that was raised, is the whole concept of the lighting and how it fits with the ambient light as it's out there. And so I'm going to present another alternative as well, which would also get back into that 1.2 range. So very briefly, this is the arch at night with all the background lighting, which was not really presented before, so I just want to kind of show how it would fit in with the lighting at the platform, the lighting at the street level, and then also the lighting under San Bruno. So the other concept that we've been exploring is, in lieu of lighting the arch internally, is to just make the arch a solid arch. So it would be very similar in size and dimension. However, rather than internally lit, it would actually be a solid arch, and then it could be lit from the underside, either floodlit or some either from platform height or from the bottom to give it a little more of an accent. And here's the same shot as taken during the day. And then finally, sort of next steps, where are we with the arch and moving forward? Where we are is we're at a decision point in terms of needing to know how we're going to proceed next. So the central question, I guess the first and foremost question is what is the city interested in constructing? Is it an internally lit arch, or is it what I'm calling a solid arch where it's lit from the bottom? Now, why this is a central question is because the long lead item, the thing that would basically be driving our schedule, is the procurement of the plexiglass material itself. It's a long lead item, and basically by the 20th of this month, that will become the critical path for the whole job. And obviously, we can't have that happen, so that's the concern. So if we were to go with a solid arch, we have a little bit, but not a lot more time, because now you're ordering sheet metal, but it buys you to the end of January, and that's it. I understand those are short timelines. I appreciate that. And so my third bullet point is very simply, if the council needs more time to make this decision and more information to do so, what that would mean practically is if these two timelines can't be met, would be that the construction of the arch itself would have to continue as separate from the main grade set. That being said, we have built a fair portion of the arch itself. So the footings are in the ground. We've already ordered steel. We bent that steel. So there'd be a certain amount of cost in transitioning that over. And then there'd be certainly schedule and likely cost impacts as well for going out for a separate contract. Remember, we were trying to take advantage of economies of scale for using the San Bruno grade separation contractor. Those would be lost if we were to go to a standalone contract. That's my presentation, if there's any questions.
You were, through the chair, you were going to explain that you had some other options to reduce?
Oh, yes, and I'm sorry I didn't blow it up enough, maybe where it can make some sense, but actually broke down, and I can furnish you this information in greater detail, but essentially, there's a menu of options where we can reduce some of the scope, and various combinations of that adds up to the 200,000 savings. So things that I'm proposing, and these are just my ideas, I mean, we're willing to look at other ways to pare back the scope, is in the current 1.4 million, we're showing the elevator glass, colored glass. My recommendation is to not do that. The other elevator's already in, it's already clear. It's just an option. Another thought would be, currently this design, although it's not shown in this figure, assumes a three-dimensional, a rather elaborate medallion would be part of the design. And so an option would be to just include the metallic lettering along the side. That's already part of the contract, so there's zero cost to that. Another option would be to light the side you see here before you, but not the side on the opposite side of the paper, meaning the side at the platform. There's savings there, obviously, in the lighting, but there's also savings in the total dimensions of the arch, right? Because you no longer need this. My apologies. You no longer need the. Better? Okay. Usually not accused of not speaking loudly enough, so. So the back side could get a little bit smaller. So there's a little bit of material saving, but it's mostly the lighting, obviously, you would save. So those are the main things we would show to compress that estimate. The other thing we're doing already is we've just reduced some of our soft costs just to kind of force it into that 1.2 threshold. So we're doing that anyway, regardless of the direction we receive. So those are the ideas, and I can lay those out at greater detail, but various combinations of those add up to the 200,000.
Raphael, I'd like to, you don't have to know it tonight because you probably don't have it all in front of you, but I'd like to know what you spent so far and what you spent it on.
Okay, so what we've spent so far, I don't have the complete list in front of me, but we are at approximately $550,000 550,000, 580,000, somewhere in that range spent to date. So let me just, broadly speaking, discuss where that went in. So roughly, and I sent these figures to staff, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but roughly speaking, approximately 180,000 of that was the footings and the foundation for the arch. So essentially, whatever you build there, that's a cost that would be recoverable. The remainder of the construction portion was approximately 40,000 for the steel itself. So not the cladding, not the stuff you saw in the mock-up, but the actual skeleton steel, and then another approximately 40,000 to bend it, cut it, and shape it. So we actually have the steel. It's in Oregon right now, bent and ready to go. So again, if that's a cost that if you were still going to build something down the road, you'd have some shipping costs, but that would still be not a lost endeavor. And then finally, we've paid most, but not all, of the design costs associated with this. The remainder, there's a small amount there for actually building the mock-up and doing viewings and things like that. That's about 25,000, something in that range. And then there's an equally small amount, approximately 40,000, which is the soft costs for administration, oversight, that kind of stuff.
Okay, I'll just speak for myself. I saw the so-called mock-up. I wasn't pleased with it at all because, to me, and I'm in this type of industry, a mock-up is what you're really going to see.
Right.
And it was pretty well slapped together. It only had one face on it. The metal wasn't even on it properly. It was bolted with C-clamps. It didn't give me a real indication of what was going on, and I didn't like it at all. And I personally think that we have to revisit it, whether it even be an arch. That's my feeling now. So the city, I don't believe, is going to give you an okay by December 20th. We're going to need some more time. And I've explained this to Mark Simon today and told him that too. So I'd like to hear what the rest of the council has to say. Ken?
Mr. Mayor, did you just say 25,000 to do those mock-ups?
So the mock-up itself was probably no more than, I don't know, 1,200 or something like that. It was a very minor piece. There was just procuring material and labor. I'm not exactly sure what that would be, but it would be significantly more than the 1,200. It would be in the...
All right, I trust you were, my comments that I emailed, were those passed on to you? Did you see my comments on when I saw the mock-up?
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, they were, and that was the reason that I don't know that the email was passed along, but that's the reason
The
that
comments,
the
okay.
design was, or the
Right.
renderings were produced for the solid steel arch, that came directly from the comments you made.
Okay. I mean, I agree with the mayor saying that, I expected more. I expected to see something, but it was enough for me. I was there with the vice mayor, and you were there, and it was very clear that, well, not very clear, but it occurred to me that this was not going to really appear much, if anything, like the original designers had presented it to us. We had a lot of other examples of other structures and things that had this type of illuminated, metal sheathing. And what really surprised me was, one, how it was not as bright as you would think it would be, considering it was in practically a pitch black area. So that, coupled with the ambient light and the lighting of the platform and above and below, meant that that was just going to dissipate even more.
Right.
And then when we saw the additional part, which would be the base and the framing, that's where I was, and I'm almost nearly convinced right now, that this type of arch, which is an internally illuminated with the gun, what do you call this metal?
Perforated metal.
Perforated metal, is, to me, unacceptable, because you are going to see the ribs of the frame through it. You're resembling it somewhat in there, but it's going to be a lot more detailed than that, because it's going to be framing practically at every foot or so, it seems. So you're going to get this checkerboard of black behind this green illumination. So that to me was totally unsatisfactory. That's why, I mean, if anything, if we do an arch, I'm fairly closely to leaning, if we do an arch, close to leaning towards a solid, solid structure. The illumination, internal illumination, doesn't impress me at all.
Okay.
Anyone else? Michael?
Thank you. I've never really been a fan of the glowing arch anyway, so I like the idea of maybe going to something solid. I think I could be sold on that.
Okay.
Can we see, in fact, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Can we see the solid one again, please?
So there it is in the daytime. And then what you're not seeing in this view is if we put any kind of illumination, it would sort of come up from the bottom just to make it pop a little more. So that's without illumination, that's with illumination.
Okay. Could you do the daytime?
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks.
So the concept in this figure is that the perforated metal would just go out the window. There would be no more plexiglass. Instead, the whole cladding would be like a sheet metal that would be welded, so you wouldn't see seams, and it would just be painted a dark green or whatever other color was requested.
Okay, it sounds like we're going to need a little more time for this council to look into it a little bit more. So.
Understood.
And I think we have a member of the public that wanted to speak on something regarding the grade separation. Is that correct?
The name is Wes Cole from Sylvan Avenue, and I'm representing the American Legion Hall at 757 San Mateo Avenue. And I see that you put forms for you robbing us of 2 parking spots. Okay, and one, us veterans, it's a lot of handicapped veterans. Chris Pallas was originally a member of the council here. He's handicapped. He needs to get out of the ready wheel bus, and the ready wheel has no place to park. We have no parking in the front, and you guys took it all away. And that's what my complaint is.
Raphael, could we have you just look at that? I know you look at some other parking issues that we had along First. Could you address this? Not necessarily right now, but could you look at it when you get back?
Sure.
All right, I would appreciate that.
And then I'm sorry, Mr. Cole. And also, Raphael, if you can look, when turning into the Legion Hall, at one angle, now that it's been changed a little bit, so you can't turn in, you can go in from the right, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the left now is more, it's almost impossible, I guess.
Right,
to
going
make
northbound, you can't turn into the post anymore. You got to sort of make a U-ey to get into the post, where before you could.
I'm sorry, so you're northbound Huntington in the morning that turn, but because the sidewalk's been moved out.
Well, I won't say the sidewalk, the divider in the center, where you guys put in the center, right there, the medium.
Correct.
And in front of the hall where you put the curb there too, extended out, you got that little medium there, and it's not very wide from when you extended the sidewalk out to that medium. And for any car to come through, I don't know how, big trucks and stuff, pretty tough for them. I sat there and see that stuff all day long, and I just shake my head. I said, where'd these guys come from? But it needs to be addressed, especially the handicap.
Okay, he'll get back. He'll get back to us with that.
Okay,
now
I
that
appreciate
he's
it.
aware of the
Thank you.
situation. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Anything else for JPP? Robert?
I was waiting. Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. Relative to maybe saving a couple dollars, the elevator glass on the west side is clear. Why do we need to spend extra money and put colored glass? I would say make them the same, and that may save us a couple dollars.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anything else? Okay.